how to actually look at the numbers and do the calculations. I'll go through it at more of a high level and make sure that you aren't missing something when you're doing your analysis. And I do have handouts if people want copies of this afterwards, so I can always give those to you. But I am a multifamily investor primarily in Waukesha County. I've been doing this for 10 years with my husband. We are operating 9 different LLCs. We own a total of 12 buildings, 60 units, all 4 and 8 families. All 2 bedrooms or larger. Our smallest unit is about 800 square feet, and our largest unit is a 2,400 square foot condo. So we do have a mixture, but it is all through Waukesha County. So a little bit different than the area Josh is investing in, and the numbers and prices are a little different as well. But we have done purchases through short sales, bank-owned properties, MLS, as well as pocket listings. My husband and I got into this 10 years ago when we were just out of college. We were interested in retiring early. For those of you who have not read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, great motivational book. Does also go through some of the key points on how to do property analysis. My husband and I are both engineers by trade, so we're pretty good with numbers. We read the book, had a couple drinks, we were on vacation, and we said, wouldn't this be great if we could just vacation year-round?
Bravo,
You know, right? That sounds like a really good idea. And so in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki's book, it mentions how to invest and retire in 10 years. And I was like, this would be really cool if in 10 years from today, I'm retired, and I'm working for myself, and I'm not working for someone else.
Did that happen?
Well, technically I did retire,
Bravo.
and then I unretired because I got bored. But I am able to, if I want to, stop working my full-time job. I am not required to work my full-time job. So I am where I wanted to be, and I was actually there in less than 10 years. So I can honestly say that if you put the work into it, whether you're investing in Milwaukee County, Waukesha County, single-family homes, multifamily properties, the rewards are there. Just make sure you do it right. And so I am going to talk to you about some of the things that can be gotchas, especially for first-time investors, and some things to look out for. So I kind of went through my background a little bit, but one of the things we do, similar to Josh, is we look at the price per unit, we look at the gross rent multiplier or cap rate. There are different ways you can analyze your properties. Whatever analysis you pick and whatever goal you want to meet, make sure you stick to it. Our goal was we wanted a certain cap rate and we wanted $100 per door before any upside. So I want $100 profit every month per door that I'm buying, and I want an upside. So that's my analysis. That's how I want to run my numbers. There's areas, though, that maybe you want $200 a door, $300 a door, or maybe you're only looking at the gross rent multiplier. Whatever method you choose to analyze by, just make sure that you understand it, that it makes sense, and that you don't fudge your numbers to get to that.
Because it's your own money you're fudging.
Yes, yes. So, let's see, where am I at? So again, we're primarily 4 families or larger. This analysis will work on single families, commercial properties, various things. We look at the purchase price, the assessed value, number of units. We developed our own homemade spreadsheet that helps us with our analysis. For those who are not really good at math, not technically savvy, if you're not familiar with the website biggerpockets.com, Bigger Pockets is really great for learning about investing in all sorts of real estate. But this website right here, I spelled it wrong, so please find that. But that website, they have a Excel format on there to help you do your analysis. So you can go to Bigger Pockets, you can use that Excel format, and it helps you with all of your calculations, so long as you put the numbers in right up front. The key things to remember is you don't want to overestimate your income, you don't want to underestimate your expenses, and you want to make sure to use your mortgage terms, not what the realtor is trying to sell you can get for rates. So although you're going to request income and expenses from the seller, You might want to request their Schedule E's. Some banks require it. Don't assume that they are accurate. You can really get burned if you look at the seller's income and expenses and assume that they're accurate. Do your due diligence. And this is not projecting very well, so I do apologize. Again, I have handouts, but these are some different purchases that we had. Again, these are all in Waukesha County. So the one in 2009, the purchase price was $325,000. It's not a $30,000 single family. It was a 4-unit condo complex with attached garages, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, washers, dryers, dishwashers. So a little different. But when we bought it in 2009, we bought it 11.6% cap rate, and we were cash flowing more than $100 per door. I'll go into some analysis on this and show the breakdown a little bit later on. But you also have to take into consideration the market. 2009, you could get pretty good deals on things. And you're thinking, well, you can't do that nowadays. So, example, 2014, we were at 7.98% cap. The difference is, though, back in 2009, our interest rates were 6.5%. Now our interest rates, depending on where you go with, getting as low as 3.25%. So make sure that you take into account all that. So when I'm talking about income, and I say don't assume what the seller puts on there is accurate for rents. Verify them. Make sure that when they say they're getting $950 a month per unit and they have a lease for that, they didn't give that tenant a free month to move in. There are some people who will do that, whether it's a promotion or because they're trying to raise the rent so that they can sell the building. And if you assume you're going to get that, and then all you have is your vacancy factor, and you don't assume you have to give that $950 a month freebie to every single person that moves in, you're going to be losing a lot of money. Also, make sure to do your due diligence in the area. They mentioned checking out Zillow, going on Craigslist. When we first started, we didn't know Waukesha that well, but we wanted to invest in Waukesha. So when we were looking at buying properties in Waukesha, I drove the neighborhood. I pulled numbers on every for rent sign. I called, I asked if they were 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms. I asked what rent specials they had. And believe it or not, I actually toured a lot of them. I pretended I was a renter. I went, I walked through the properties, I got their whole spiel on how they do their leases, what rent specials they do, if they back charge for utilities, all that sort of stuff. I know it sounds like a lot of work, but I didn't know the area. And I wanted to invest in the area, and I wanted to make sure that I understood what I could get for rent and what I couldn't get for rent. So that helped me to know my market better. I'm not saying you have to do that, but make sure you know your market. Don't just assume what the seller or what the realtor tells you can get for rent is accurate. One of the things you'll see as you're doing your research is maybe the rents for the unit or complex you're buying are super low. And you're wondering to yourself, oh my gosh, is this really going on? And I'll give you a perfect example. We just bought something about a year ago. The rents for a 2-bedroom, 1-bath condo style unit with garages, $725 is what they were charging. The market rent is $900 for those units. The person bought the building 6 years ago. She was in the restaurant business, bought this building thinking it'd be good to get out of the restaurant business, does not know real estate. She made money. Or 10%. We use the 5% vacancy factor in all of our analysis. Our average vacancy over 10 years, maybe 1%. When he mentions it's hard to turn stuff over and might sit for a little bit, we turn stuff over in 24 hours. So I had someone move out at noon and someone's in there either that evening or the next morning. Initially, when we started out, sweat equity. My husband and I were there middle of the night cleaning and scrubbing and replacing carpets and repainting the entire unit. We did our full-time job in the morning, and in the evening we went and we worked all night and turned the keys over late that night or first thing in the morning. It was not fun. I'm not here to tell you it's easy, But that's how we got started, and that's how we got to where we are today. So if you aren't sure what vacancy rate to use, believe it or not, the U.S. Census Bureau does studies on this, and they provide vacancy rates for all different areas. So if you aren't sure and you're still learning your market, this website on here, that's the Census Bureau's website, they have vacancy rates. And so you can go on there, and based on single-family homes, multifamily rentals, you can look up vacancy rates, and it'll give you a good starting point if you aren't sure where to start. So make sure you do account for vacancy, whether you want to account 10%, 15%, 5%, just make sure you account for vacancy and do your due diligence. If you are going to be financing the property with a bank, they automatically want to see a 5% vacancy rate or higher, depending on the bank. So don't put anything less than 5%, because if you do your analysis and you give it to the bank and they see something less than 5%,
3% they don't.
yeah, 3%, they're going to throw it out. They don't even want to look at the numbers because, you know, they assume 5%. Also, you're going to see some sellers put on their income late fee income, and they include that as part of their analysis. Don't put that in your analysis. Don't assume that late fee income is going to be there. You want your tenants to pay on time. Yes, you might have some late fee income, but don't count on it. That's kind of like an added bonus. So just because the seller put it in there and they're getting, you know, $1,000 a year in late fee, don't say, ooh, I got $1,000 and, you know, put in there. Don't try to make the numbers work. Make sure that they make sense. So when we get to expenses, don't assume that they're accurate. Make sure that you look at the tax bill to verify what the taxes are. You can go online and you can look up tax bills for most properties. You can see if they've been assessed recently, if they haven't. Most of the time that's included in a real estate listing. One thing to watch for when you're looking at taxes is if the property, and we see this a lot, if the property is assessed at $300,000, but in today's market it's selling for $400,000. When you buy that property at $400,000, your tax assessment will go up. So you need to account for that. So if you do your analysis and you say taxes today are at $6,000, I'm going to put $6,000 in my analysis, but you buy it for $100,000 more than it's assessed at, you're really going to burn yourself on a couple $1,000s of extra taxes you're going to see that the previous owner did not see. So make sure that when you're doing your analysis, if you're paying a good portion more than what it's assessed at, you account for that in your taxes, because they will get their money. They will get their money from you for their taxes. So, and the other thing is, when you are buying, especially in Waukesha County, after you close, the assessor's office is going to send you a letter requesting you release all of your rents to them. Your rental amounts, what you paid for it. You are not required to fill it out. They will state that on there. But they want you to fill it out because if, for any reason, they can prove the property is worth more than what you bought it for,
They'll hire it.
they will raise your rate even more. So even though you bought it for $400,000, if they think based on the rents you're getting it's worth $450,000, they will assess it at $450,000. So if you do get that form, make sure you're aware what you're filling out on it, or don't fill it out. So just a big tip, because taxes can really burn you if you're not paying attention and you don't account for them, because that's one of your biggest expenses. So tax bill, the other thing is you're going to have utilities. Whether you bill them to tenants or not, you need to make sure how that's handled. So if they say it's being billed to the tenants, make sure to look at what the leases say. Is it being billed? Is it being prorated? Do they divide it? If the owner pays it, verify what it is. You are able to call, whether it's City of Waukesha, City of McWanago, City of Milwaukee, you can call them and they will provide you what the average bill is for the last 12 months, along with the high and low bill for water and sewer, and you can also call We Energies and get the same information for any multifamily property you're looking at for common bills. Do that to make sure that when you're running your analysis, you're using the correct numbers. There was one property we looked at, and the average water and sewer bill, like what they said it was going to be per month, was like, for 4 family, $100, which seemed a little low, and we're like, something seems kind of odd. So we made a phone call and found out that their high bill for the past 12 months was $480 for 1 month. And I was like, whoa, what happened here? So I did a little digging and found out that they had a major plumbing issue that they were trying to cover up. We wouldn't have known about it had we not made some phone calls. Make sure that you call to verify the water and sewer bills, call to verify trash and recycling, call to verify your WE energies if there are common lights, common gas, or if the owner pays heat, make sure that you know how much that's going to cost you. When we're talking about insurance, Josh mentioned there are different types of insurance. Depending on what type of property you have and what you want covered, make sure you have the proper coverage. I'm not going to tell you what's right for your business. For our business and the type of properties we invest in, we do replacement cost. Because to build a condo to what I have now is going to cost me a lot more. So I don't want it to burn down. I don't want something to happen, and I'm left paying $400,000 out of pocket to rebuild what I already had. So work with a really good insurance agent. Don't know who to work with. There are a lot of people through REI, through these meetups. Make sure that you talk through the coverage and you understand what coverage you have. If you are in a flood zone, make sure you have flood insurance. If you are in areas where there are predominant high winds, and there are certain low-lying areas in the Wisconsin area that are very prone to get high winds, 60 to 70 mile an hour gusts, you can get roof damage real easily. And depending on the type of coverage you have, they won't cover it. So make sure you understand your policy and make sure that that's what you use in your analysis. Make sure that you aren't saying, okay, well the owner has $60 a month. Well, if you want full replacement costs, maybe it's going to be $180 a month. So just make sure you understand what numbers you're putting in there, and that if you don't have someone to work with, get in contact with someone so you can get quotes and use accurate numbers. Lawn and snow care. If you intend on having tenants do that, because you have a single family or a duplex, that's great. I have multifamilies. 4 tenants do not want to divide up those responsibilities. And if they do, it never ends up working out because you're going to have that line of grass. And then if it's, in the city of Waukesha and your grass is over so tall, you're going to get fined. So, if you are hiring it out or doing it yourself, make sure you understand that if you're doing it yourself, great. Sweat equity. If not, and you're hiring it out, get quotes. Put those numbers in there. Make sure that you aren't just relying on any information that's in there, because maybe they're paying $50 a month, but it's their brother mowing the lawn. It might cost you $150 because it is an acre lot. So get bids if you don't know them. Management. I said assume X for management. My husband and I self-manage. We own 12 properties. We manage all of our properties. We don't have any management fees. If you're going to hire a management company, include that in your expenses. If you aren't sure if you're going to hire a management company, put that in your expenses. If you think there's any chance you're going to hire it out or you aren't sure what to do, put it in your expenses. If you aren't sure, management fees. A good starting point is 5%. Good starting point, not necessarily always true depending on the area you're in and the type of property. As well as, I guess one other thing to note on management fees is depending on the size of the property and the bank you are working with. When you do your analysis, certain banks require a management fee to be included in your analysis. And they want to see either anywhere between a 3 and 7% management fee. Every bank is different, so that's something to take into account if you are, depending on the bank you're financing with, because they want to make sure that if you get hit by a train and they have to hire a management company to take over while they're holding on to this property, it still makes sense and that they're not going to be losing money. And then when we talk about capital expenses, roofs, those sort of things, we don't assume a certain amount in our analysis. We don't put the reserves in there. We take the income, we save it, we don't spend it, we hold on to it in case something happens. You have those rainy days. This year, with the winds we had 4 roofs go. Not what you would expect, but it happens. So you make sure that you can account for it. Insurance can cover it depending what your insurance is, or you might have to cover it. Also, there are things that are out of your control that happen other than roofs. The city of Waukesha recently, I think about 2, maybe 3 years ago, the lateral main for water and sewer, they transferred to the homeowners. It used to be their responsibility if something happened. You paid taxes so that they would take care of it if something happened. They transferred home ownership, and guess what? This winter, with the freeze thaw and crazy weather we had a lateral snap and caused major issues. It was negative 20 degrees out, and we had the yard dug up. So you're going to have those rainy days. I'm not going to tell you need to, save X amount, but make sure that you don't spend all of your cash buying the property, and then if something happens, you can't repair it. Yeah.
So when you go on vacation and you don't deal with management, who runs your apartment?
She doesn't go on vacation.
I do go on vacation. I actually go on a lot of vacations.
She's got 2 twins too. Yeah, she's got a twin, 3.5.
So we actually have how we do all of our management is all documented in procedures and policies. And the reason we do that is twofold. One, I don't want to get sued. And if I do get sued, I want to say I'm following our procedures and I'm doing the same for every one of my tenants. The second is if something were to happen to me and my husband needs to fill in, or we go on vacation and we need someone to fill in for us, they can follow that. We use an online tenant portal, so our tenants send maintenance requests through the internet. We always require maintenance requests unless it's an emergency in writing, because if I had 60 tenants calling me up all the time, I would forget the maintenance request. I'm not going to remember everything. So they send us a maintenance request through there, and we have different contractors set up where I can send them emails, and we have business accounts with them, and they coordinate taking care of everything. They'll call our tenants to coordinate getting in. They'll bill us when we get back, all that fun stuff. There are occasionally emergencies, though. I make sure that if I'm out of the country, I have an international plan so they can get a hold of us. If for some reason I don't answer because I might be sleeping because of different time zones or whatever the case, I have an emergency contact number on my voicemail if it's an emergency. That person can be a close friend you trust very much. It can be a company that you pay for when you're on vacation, and there are companies that are at-will companies, and they charge you only if they get phone calls when you're gone. It can be a business associate. Whoever you want to work with, that's great. We have a business associate who, if there are issues, his phone number is on our voicemail and our tenants contact him. He knows how to handle things. He has our business accounts. He has all of our contact information, and when we leave, he has access to all of our keys. Everyone handles it differently, but yeah, you want to make sure someone handles it when you're gone.
What's the name of the website you use for maintenance
So
yourself?
there's multiple different services out there, but Buildium, BUILDIUM, is a service that allows landlords to pay based on the number of units they have. It is a little bit pricier service than some of those out there, but it allows, if you do not already have a website for your business, it allows you to use their site to set up a basic website. You can set up tenant portals through there, you can collect rent through there, track all of your expenses, your income, handle all of it through there. So we have it for all of our properties. We manage everything on there. We don't use the website portion of it. We do our own website, but it does offer that as well. So once you look at your income, you look at your expenses, you make sure the numbers are right, you want to do your analysis, and again, we do cap rate and cash per door per month, and then we also want to look at our ROI just because we want to make sure, everything looks good. for us, we've been doing this a long time. For me to do that whole process, if I sit down, don't take any other phone calls, I'm not distracted, everything will be done in an hour. If you're just getting started, it's going to take a little longer to do your analysis, but continue to do it. Do it on properties you may or may not be interested in so that you can get familiar with running the numbers, you get familiar with who to contact, you get all of your contacts and everything out there so that when you do find a property you really want, you can do the analysis quickly and you can put an offer in the same day. Depending on the market you're in, we're Waukesha County. If it actually hits the MLS, you got to put an offer in the same day that it's being listed right now. That's just how it is. You know, where it'll be in 3 years, we'll see. And then based on that, we actually only set up showings for properties after we've run the numbers. We do that hour worth of work, we do that due diligence, and then we have a couple brokers we work with very closely. We give them a call, we say, hey, we're interested, the numbers work at this price, we think it's going to be good. I want to see the property, if it makes sense, I'm writing an offer today. And again, this is really hard to see, so I do have handouts. But just like Josh mentioned, you know, there's different forms. This is our Excel format that we use. It actually has everything calculated in here. So based on the purchase price, the taxes is automatically calculated to escalate. And then we have a per year, per month column, and it goes through and it also accounts for tax depreciation, so you can see what you're going to have at the end of the year as well. So this one was, it was a 2009 purchase. The mortgage rate then, it was 15% down, which was kind of nice for a multifamily. 6.25% interest rate, which now it seems extremely high. Back then it seemed really good. And it was amortized over 30 years. Depending on how many multifamilies you have, if you're looking commercial loans or not, all those factors change. So work closely with the bank to understand what your factors are. Yes?
Amortized number 20 on an ARM, or?
No, this was not an ARM. It was a 30-year fixed rate.
So you're walking in with 25% equity?
Well, we only put 15% down. So, you know.
Loan to value though, you had 25% at least?
Loan to value, we had more than that.
Way more than that.
Yeah. Yep. And, you know, one thing to note is if you are talking single families, duplexes, or 4 families, and you're just getting started and you're under 6 buildings, you can qualify for a 20, 25, or 30-year fixed loan. Once you get above so many properties, unless you work with, you know, portfolio loans or certain lenders, you start getting into ARMs and balloon loans. So 3, 5, 7-year, and your rates and your amortization and your percent down changes. So when you start building your business, don't just assume that working with the same bank is always going to work and that you can do that, because after you get so many properties, things kind of switch and you go from what they call like a residential investor to more of a commercial investor, even though you're investing in single families, duplexes, or possibly 4 families. So make sure that you work with, if it's a bank, a hard money lender, or if you're paying cash, great, more power to you, but we always have mortgages, so we work with banks. I work with 5 banks on a regular basis. I know what their rates are. I follow up every 3 to 6 months to make sure that I know what the going rate is so that I can do my analysis and I don't have to call the banks to do that analysis. I just stay in contact with them year round. We use the same insurance. Oh, yep.
A follow-up question, if you're beyond the 6 number threshold for inventory, and this is specific to commercial real estate, correct? Multifamily and such and up?
Yep.
So then you're in the volatile lending market then. How are you currently handling that volatility, considering rates are inching up as we speak and stuff?
Yep.
Just portfolio lenders.
So there are different ways you can handle it. You can continue to finance each property individually, and when you do that, the banks actually will do the analysis at a higher percent interest rate and make sure it still meets the threshold for them to finance. So if rates are, say, 3.5%, they'll actually run their analysis at 6 or 6.5% and make sure that it still makes sense. Each bank has their own, I'll say, safety net or risk factor. So every bank runs it a little different, but they all analyze the numbers at a different higher interest rate when they look at it for a commercial loan. The other thing is you can set up a portfolio loan. And a portfolio loan will wrap multiple properties together. And depending on how equity changes or the market changes, you can kind of pull from the other properties to even things out. So there's, a lot of banks that handle commercial loans. If you have questions, I'd be happy to answer them afterwards, and I can refer you to a couple people, but get familiar with the people you'd be working with and make sure that you understand the rates. Just because I can get like a 3.5% interest rate doesn't mean you can. Every person gets different rates based on credit score, based on past experience, and exceptions taken. So the bank wants to say, I'm going to give you this percent, and they'll give you a standard response when you ask what rates and what terms they have. They will take exceptions if you're a qualified investor, if you have good credit, if you have been doing this a long time. So feel free to challenge banks. It's a good thing too, because you can always get a reduced rate. But make sure that when you're getting rates, you're looking at what rates you can get, not what realtors are putting in their packet when they send it to you. Because everyone gets different rates depending on what your qualifications are.
One last question. Are you
Yeah.
currently heavily into acquisitions, or are you holding fast?
No, we are actively looking.
You still are?
Yes. Yep. Market's a little different right now, but we are actively looking. We have not stopped looking in pretty much 10 years. Yes.
Have you lowered your cap rate threshold with the way the market is? Or?
We have, so like you saw, like initially we were like 11%, now we're more like 8%. We have lowered it, but we still want to make sure that we get the $100 cash per door and have an upside. So we know that the rents are below market. We know that there's one unit that is gutted and it's down to studs, and we can repair it, get it occupied, and then count that as income. There's some sort of upside that we want to make sure we can account for.
How do you calculate that $100 per door number?
This analysis, which you can't see, so I do apologize. I'll have handouts afterwards. I'll make sure to put them on the table.
Take those.
Yeah. And we can also...
Also, Ann, can I post the PowerPoint in the group?
Yep, I will get you an updated one because I
Okay.
added some extra examples.
Oh, okay, perfect.
So I will make sure that Rebecca has the information so that she can post it. And again, the handouts, I didn't know how many people were here, so they can be hard to read as well. But I will get the information to Rebecca so she can post it. If you guys have questions, you want to, talk to me about the analysis further, I can also pull it up on my computer and show people after this so you can see it a little bit better. What else to note? Taxes. Sorry, yep.
A while back,